Greetings all, this is Ohio Dan. Today's video topic is the concept of flipping the script when it comes to male utility value. And what I'm talking about here basically boils down to men being seen as human doings. And it's unfortunate, but it really appears like we're never really going to shift into a more positive dynamic where men are not seen as human doings and as providers and protectors. I'm not saying it's impossible that in the future someday we might be able to be relieved from those roles and not be just seen based on what we can do for others, but for the foreseeable future at the very least, and for pretty much all of past history as well, men have been seen as human doings. And this is one of the basic principles for men who are self-aware when it comes to gender-based issues. It's a recognition that unlike women who are seen as human beings, we are viewed as human doings by nearly everyone. Fair or not, and it really isn't, but it boils back down to the idea that life is often not fair, men are basically only valued for performing their provider-protector role for others in society, not based on their character or personhood. No one really cares whether you're a good person unless that benefits women or society or whoever else is questioning your value. If they don't see what they can get from you, then you're useless to them, regardless of almost anything else. Now, of course, people won't come out and directly say this, but again, this is one of the main ideas that I think men who are wanting to navigate the world for what it really is and to open their eyes to how things are actually orchestrated, it's just the truth. You're lucky if you have any family members or true friends at all that actually care about you beyond just being a human doing and as a means to an end. It's unfortunate, but that is the collective cross that men are expected to bear. I'm not talking about how things should be. I'm just being realistic on how men are actually viewed in the world for what it is, and how men are likely to continue to be viewed, unfortunately. In my opinion, at least, this is just how things are. You are seen as a human doing. And again, to be honest, this often has a negative impact on men because it can lead to getting thrown away by others once your utility value is no longer available to them in whatever form it was once present. If they can't get anything from you anymore, you get kicked out of the home. You get kicked out of your job, right? And if it makes sense, if you're not able to do the work, that you wouldn't have that job anymore. But there is no safety net like there is for women. There is no support. There is no respect. You're just supposed to handle it all yourself. And if you can't, then you're useless in the eyes of most people. That's not a good thing, but that's where things stand. And that's where things tend to be for men, not just today, but really throughout all of human history. The main thing that's changed is that now the reward system for being a good provider and protector really isn't there either. And that's what I'm going to get to here in a moment. Because this value that you have as a utility object can also be turned around to work the other way, where men can withhold their utility value from those people who have treated them unfairly or had cast them aside in the past, or from future situations where you as a man do not benefit from particular conditions, from the arrangement at hand for what it is. If there's nothing really in it for you that you think is worthwhile, you don't have to provide any utility value for the people and the things that aren't worthwhile. You don't have to put yourself in those kinds of situations, most of the time at least. So although there are many negative aspects for men being seen primarily as utility objects, men can learn to use this to their advantage if they're willing to withhold their capabilities in some cases, if they're willing to say no, if they're willing to not participate, if they're willing to take their ball and go home unless there's some sort of advantage of not doing that. And I do understand being trapped in negative situations. That happens in life all the time as well, where you're in a marriage and then you become awakened while married. You're in a job that you don't really have the ability to quit or find another position somewhere else because it's just not available right now without you putting in significant effort to find that other job. And right now it hasn't materialized. So maybe at your job, you're not respected, you're not liked, you're working your butt off for little to no gain, but you may think that there's no alternative right now for that. And given the conditions in the economy that we have in many Western countries today and the world being the way that it is, that might be true with the cost of living and the lack of jobs that you can readily do unless you have a very special skill set, unless you're really prepared. You may not be able to find a good job in your area. You may not be able to just easily get a divorce from your wife. You may have an abusive woman, but you know that if she divorces you, she's going to take half your stuff. But even in those situations, you can do the planning and usually eventually find a way out of it, I think. I know that it's not always going to work out in a way that is equitable, but you can cut your losses, and from that point on, just stop helping, right? From that point on, maybe your wife gets custody of the kids, and that's not a good thing, but you fight the child support system as best you can, right? You still don't allow yourself to get taken advantage of in a way that isn't absolutely foisted upon you. You still can opt out of providing your utility value to people and things that aren't part of a healthy aspect of your life. They're not something that benefits you in any way, shape, or form. And that's what I'm talking about here. A man can choose to flip the script on his male utility value and being seen as a human doing by recognizing the current dynamic for what it is, the way that the world works today, and then refuse to give beyond the minimum amount required to all but those who have earned more from him. And this is something that I see a lot of men not doing. A lot of men feel like it's their duty to provide even though they're getting treated like crap and they're not appreciated at all. It's their duty to work hard just for the sake of working hard, pretty much, because it's what a real man ought to do regardless of the conditions or circumstances. And I don't think that's a healthy way to go about it, to be honest. I think that your utility value is something that you have to, in my opinion, you're pretty much forced to confront because you are seen as a human doing by most people, nearly everyone, unless you're lucky to have people that actually love you for who you are. But that's pretty rare from a man's point of view. The thing about it is, though, you can use that power in such a way to further your interests and to improve your life and to raise yourself from the standards that society sets for you. Because honestly, if you're not being respected, if you're not being compensated fairly for something, if it makes no sense to do something because, for example, getting married is like playing Russian roulette from a guy's perspective today, because the woman can end it all at any time and probably take half your stuff, probably take your house, probably take your kids. Honestly, you can opt out of doing that. You don't have to play that role anymore if it doesn't suit you. You have to play the role in a certain way. I know that the men's rights movement doesn't like to acknowledge that. They want to reform things so that men aren't just seen as human doings. But I think realistically, that's the way it's going to continue to be, whether we like it or not. But you can play that card to your advantage. You can flip the script on that to a large extent by only allowing the people and the circumstances that play some positive role in your life to receive that utility value. There has to be a purpose behind it. It's not just something that you do for the sake of doing it. You do it because you have to, but only in circumstances where it actually makes sense. The rest of the time where people treat you poorly, people betray you, and I don't want to make it sound like it's just about your emotional state in terms of how you react to people, but people don't do right by you. You know that this person lied. You know that this person didn't hold up their end of the bargain. You know that at your job, other people are getting credit for the things you do, and you're working harder than other people, and those other people are the ones with the better reputation. Those other people are the ones that primarily benefit from your hard work. You can come up with a way to stop giving your utility value to those people, to those jobs, to those situations by just not doing it anymore or planning a way to not do it anymore in the future. You withhold your utility value and the fruits of your labor for situations that are mutually beneficial. It's not ideal by any means. It's not good that you're seen not really as a human being, but as a human doing, but you can make that work to your advantage by fully acknowledging that this is where things stand. And so now you've got to play this hand well. You've got to deal with this for what it really is in a way that allows you to not get used up. Either some level of reciprocity or other positive outcome is received in return for whatever it is that you're doing as a utility object, so to speak, or a man can simply apply himself elsewhere if that benefit isn't received, and withhold the fruits of his labor for those people and situations that serve a worthwhile purpose from his perspective, not from what society tells you you're supposed to do, not from what a political ideology like the tradcons or the feminists tell you you're supposed to do, not from a woman that supposedly cares about you in a relationship, but it's a one-sided arrangement and it really isn't even to your advantage to stay in the relationship beyond a certain point, not from family members that take advantage of you, not from fake friends, but from the people that deserve to matter based on merit, as I've said in videos in the past. And so this is a concept that I think men should keep in mind. It's not positive that we're seen as human doings, but there is a way to create something positive out of it, potentially. It's not ideal, it's not optimal, but we can focus on what actually can lead to us meeting our goals, what can actually lead to finding contentment with things, finding things that we feel like we have a positive stake in, and everything else can basically F off. Everything else can go take a hike. People that want to act like, well, we don't need you anyway, Dan, and you'll get this a lot. We don't care about you anyway because you didn't add anything of value in the first place. Cool. That's great too. That means that's one less thing that I need to worry about, because it becomes a lot like the whole, well, you just can't get a woman anyway because you won't sign up for a conventional relationship. It's one of those deals where if that's really how things are, then that makes things easier. Because if I'm not really adding anything here and I don't feel like I'm benefiting myself from it, then you can keep on walking. It becomes one of those deals where it's just in everyone's interest to move on then. That's not really what people want you to do, though. People want you to put yourself in a compromised position as a man. People want you to sign up for things that aren't in your own interests. And so they try to emotionally manipulate you by saying that you're worthless anyway. But in reality, if that's what they think, then they don't respect you and you're not benefiting from them, so who cares? And that's not the conclusion that a lot of people want you to draw, but that's the logical outcome to that. So again, to wrap up this video, you can flip the script on being valued just as a utility object. You can essentially play that card well or not well, depending on whether you're willing to get used or not, whether you put yourself in situations where you're going to be exploited or not. You can choose to only provide the fruits of your labor or what you can do to the people and the situations that actually deserve it based on mutual benefit and reciprocity, based on mutual respect, based on whether that person's treated you reasonably well in the past or not. It could be that in the future, you'll find out that if you can't do these same things for the people that you thought were part of your inner circle, that you thought actually saw you as more than a human doing, right? They decide to drop you. Unfortunately, again, that is part of the dynamic at play. People can decide that you're not a good utility object. That's how men are going to be treated. But again, the consequence for that is if they come back later when you regain that ability to do something for them, and they want to see whether you'll be their friend, even though they told you that you were useless, even though they lied to you about something, whatever it was that led to you removing them from your life, at that point, it's too bad for them. You can deny them access to your utility value. And so I think that's a powerful tool that men have in terms of flipping the script on what we're just supposed to basically accept or even fight against, as the men's rights movement has tried to do to an extent, to say, oh, we're not just human doings. Well, we are going to be seen as human doings. But the way that you apply that is something that you have some control over, and you don't have to be a human doing in a situation that you don't benefit from. And I think for the self-aware men out there, this is key in establishing the path that you want to take for your life by not wasting your time and energy on things that aren't going to benefit you or that don't have any sort of positive place in your life. Don't do that just because you're told to or just because society expects you to conform in such a way. Your utility value is something that unfortunately will largely define you as a man in the eyes of others, but you do have some control over it, and you don't have to provide your utility to most people or most situations that don't have any sort of reasonable outcome that you can have a positive, healthy place in. The people and the situations that you don't need to apply your utility value to and that don't benefit you in any way, they don't have to be a part of what you do at all.